Welcome, nerdies, to another episode of Lovecraft Country Review. I'm your host, English Dave, with my co-hosts Rocket Mike, Mercedes, and Raven. What's up, everybody?
What up, Dave?
Ooh, guys, episode 9, the penultimate episode. One more to go. Of course, a lot's going to happen. We expected a lot, but we got a lot. The synopsis is as follows. With Hippolyta at the helm, Letty, Tick, and Montrose travel to 1921 Tulsa in an effort to save Dee. This episode carries off from the last episode where we saw Montrose holding Dee as she was being possessed by Topsy and Bopsy. And now we see more of that, and we've seen that she's slowly being transformed into one of them. Dun dun dun, which was creepy to see.
I know. I thought we were done. I thought we were done from the last episode from those creepy little girls, and then they just had to sprinkle it in.
This is a direct result of it, and Hippolyta returns, and for the first time, we pretty much see everyone, the gang, the family, people, at least those who are alive, together, right?
Yeah, they finally realized they all messing with that bitch Christina.
Right? It's
I
like
feel
all...
are they the true nerdy bunch? Like the sci-fi magic horror? Like
they're the 50s version. The 50s version.
The original 50s.
The original
nerdy. No, the ratios are about right.
This is a time travel episode. This is kind of like gave me Back to the Future vibes as well. You know, just traveling back to a time.
Honestly, any excuse for time travel, I'm with it. I don't care.
Of course. This confirmed that it is a multi-dimensional machine, which can go in time and space in various dimensions. Hippolyta came out and said, no, this is what it is. She's the only one smart enough, right? And but we're going to go as normal, as usual. I'm going to start with you, Mike. Quick thoughts. What do you think of this episode?
Love that HBO is continuing with real Black history. It didn't stop with just Watchmen. They're like, no, we're going to bounce off of that and actually go through an entire episode, not just a hint. I want to keep seeing that. And then I think it was right when you said it was like the Avengers moment. Everyone came together and like, okay, we all don't trust this crazy bitch, right? Okay, everyone's on board. Great, let's move forward, except maybe one, but let's just keep going. Still a lot of questions, especially at the end, but I don't want to give too much away. We'll get into it.
Yeah. Raven, your thoughts. A lot of things come to a head in this episode. A lot of emotions come to the front. You know, things get answered, things get discussed. What did you think of this episode?
Overall, I feel like, I don't know, in my opinion, there hasn't been a bad episode yet. There's been episodes that I maybe loved more or less. This one wasn't necessarily my favorite, but I was happy that it finally happened. Like, I'm happy that, you know, we finally have had the discussion that all of you have given something super valuable to Christina that she should not have. And you all should have definitely talked to each other before doing any of these things. So I'm glad that we finally that's in the open, because I was wondering when that was going to be addressed, everybody's common denominator. I think it's interesting still trying to figure out what Christina's motivations are. Yeah, I think a lot of interesting things happen in this episode. I loved PTSD. I love that it deals once again with generational trauma, and I love being able to see Montrose's perspective, like little Montrose while seeing big Montrose.
No, I think you're right. I think this episode, again, I think like all penultimate episodes to shows, you're bringing a lot of things to a head without necessarily introducing too many new elements. It's more about answering questions that are there. And I also think, you know, I was talking to my wife about it. I think low key, Christina is the villain of the series, of the season. There's nobody else left. You know, she's the villain of the season, at least. And so that, so her motivations are her own. She doesn't give a fuck about anybody else. Mercedes, what did you think of this episode?
Once again, obviously, I thought the episode was great, but it definitely kind of pulled things together in a way, but also in a way that you're just like, oh, this shit is just going to fall apart. So like, even though you felt like you got some closure from the episode, you felt like you had some characters come together, you also know that there's also holes in that relationship, because as the audience, the fourth wall, we've seen other people talk and have these secret like conversations. So we know it's not going to go how everyone wants it to go. I think, as Mike said, like without giving away too much before we go into our discussion topics, I'm going to leave it there.
Okay. This episode does answer a lot of questions in terms of from characters' point of views, from people getting to talk to each other, to find out information from each other, or just share information with each other. A lot of the themes as well is, I think it brings the theme of generational trauma to a head, in the sense of also how trauma can be transferred into something positive. Like how sometimes you go through this trauma so that future generations can benefit, so that they can live. There's one line that character says in this, my faith made flesh. Which is about having that faith that you're going to suffer for your future generation ancestors, descendants, to then progress forward. Let's go into discussion. Raven, we'll start at the beginning. This opens up with them helping Dee and fighting over who did this and who did that. And then, like you said, they all realize that everybody knows who Christina is. One of the things that comes to light is, this show once shows again, everyone's lying to everybody. When Tech is like, I'll just offer up the pages, and Letty's like, so about those pages.
Once a week, one of them are, it's crazy. It reminds me of that documentary.
There was like
Taken in
two
Plain
moments
Sight.
in that whole scene.
Like, come on, y'all. Come on.
But then just gone.
Yeah, I think like I was happy it was finally happening. It was like a sigh of relief, but it was also like, none of you can really be mad at the other because you've all done this. Like, all of you have done this in some way. And I don't know why any of you trust Christina. Like, y'all are literally all, no, white people can't trust them. And like the queen of the white bitch, like y'all are like, okay, here you go. Here's the pages. Here's like, especially the crazy maze that they went through to obtain, or like just all of the things that we've gone through in this show to get all of these artifacts, to just hand them over so kindly to Christina is crazy to me. So I'm happy that finally happened. It was weird. It's kind of eerie seeing Christina at the house as like I don't know, like are we talking about that at the dinner table? Like, has Letty let that out? Like, or does, you know what I'm saying? Like, who knows?
So much going on. Like, all of you.
Yeah.
It's
so
like
it's interesting because I feel like at home I was like, but, and like, we just didn't have time in this episode to address that. But I was kind of like, I was happy, but I also kind of want more. Like,
yeah. I guess the urgency was D's and like the D, she's in trouble. We need to fix and help D, right?
Yeah,
and
which I thought Christina was coming to actually like not help D, but I thought that it was because she cared about Ruby, which I'm still trying to figure that out. Like, does she actually care about Ruby, or is Ruby just fun to pass the time? Like, is she like an addict? How like junkies always have that like junkie bestie or that like junkie romance? Like, is that her like drug partner? Or is that like a thing?
We also established again last week, we saw that Dee couldn't speak on her curse, but she could draw about it. She could draw it, which gave Christina a kind of hint of what it meant. Christina can't do much. She can only kind of reset it, but she can't stop it. And which she does a deal with Tick, which he has to now freely go to the autumnal equinox. What does that mean? And I wonder if that him having to go freely, does that mean his protection spell won't be activated? Because he's going freely.
Technically he's protected, but it's also like, aren't those her monsters? So like,
those monsters. Those
now
monsters.
He has one of his own.
Yeah, that's the thing. Those monsters serve certain masters. She doesn't control all of them. Each one has their own master. But if he's going willingly, is it a threat? Would it protect him? I don't know. Maybe she has. That's kind of her kind of contingency, and that's why she's quote unquote helping.
Well, technically, her dad had to take off his invincibility in order to do the same thing. So I think it'll have something to do with like, but like she also doesn't know. So maybe that could be the thing that helps him to live, is that she doesn't know he's protected. She tries to do the thing and the monster comes in and rips her apart.
We shall find out.
There are just so many questions.
Right?
Yeah.
Mike, we see the leftover of the attack on Lancaster. He is alive. Kind of barely, and we get a lot of confirmations about his body. What did you think of that sequence with William showing up? We find out why William made Ruby hide that rune inside the office. That whole sequence. What did you think?
I'm glad to finally figure that little mystery out, because that's like a little detail that I think we all kind of forgot about. At least I did, until it was brought back up. You'd have no idea what it was for. You knew the mission. You knew what was going on inside the office at the time. You just had no idea what this little room was going to be doing. And then it was all kind of came together from the episode with the ghosts in the house, and you understand about the experiments, and now seeing him, with the wounds and like, oh, let me try this body part. That's not working. Everything kind of came together in that moment, and there's like 5 questions were answered at the same time. And you kind of, man, it just felt really good to watch that. I couldn't help it. I'm like, this guy is not getting away with it this time. Nothing you do is going to save you now. And I'm hoping it's final.
I think
that's
irony.
why we didn't feel bad when Christina. We felt we wanted her to get information from him, but when she just sat there, we were like,
just watch him die.
It's nice.
Okay.
I'm like, y'all could keep the camera rolling on this shit,
right? I'm okay with this
Let's
thing.
do an hour of this.
I love the irony. I love the irony of how the rune works, where it's like, it would like every time he switches the body parts out, the same wounds would just keep happening again. No matter what, the same wounds just keep appearing, which I thought was, oof, that's a tough way to go. Mercedes. Christina says to them, in order to at least help reset the curse on D, they need the blood of a closest family relative, and everyone automatically assumes it's going to be Montrose, and that's when Montrose says to George, to Tick, that it could be him because Uncle George could be your father. That moment, Tick finding that out, and even realizing that, did Mama cheat on you? How did you feel that whole moment?
The whole moment was just so significant, but it was sort of rushed. And I think in another scene, in another movie or another show, this would have been a nitpick and been like, how could you not have explained this? But due to the time constraint that we all knew we were on for the curse, like, we were able to look that over to be like, okay, so we got to figure out who it is. And at this point, we can't deal with the emotion behind that, but we've already had this kind of come to Jesus moment in the last episode. So, we're able to at least deal with it instead of lashing out at each other, which is what I saw from this episode, where the family could actually talk to each other about their stuff. Because from the last episode that we saw, everybody kind of put all their cards on the table. They showed what they have, they showed their flaws, and everyone, from what they said in those conversations, accepted that. And I feel like we saw that when we were thrust with the actual question, which we've all asked, is Tick Montrose's son? And when Montrose says, you might not be, Tick is able to accept that. And I think that's really significant because it shows growth in the relationship.
I think one of the best parts of that moment as well, again, this show continues to show that not everyone's perfect, is that in that moment, Tick has to also harshly realize that his mother wasn't perfect, quote unquote. Right. Because it's like, did she cheat on you? What? Like that whole idea of the mom.
He was so upset. Mom cheated on you.
The dad was the bad guy.
Yeah, I
before.
guess so.
Right.
Like, we weren't really involved in that way, son.
And that reaction wouldn't have been able to come through without his dad actually being able to talk to him about his homosexuality and how it affected him in his life, and the choice that he made to actually love his son and his wife, regardless of it being a sexual or a platonic relationship.
Thankfully, they don't have to figure this out right away because Hippolyta returns, and thus the closest living relative of D, so they're able to use her blood.
Yeah, as soon as just gonna brush that over. It's
That's
like,
what I said. Like,
yes.
And
glazed by it.
Right, it's like, okay, we gotta save a dying girl from a demon curse. We'll deal with that later. And Hippolyta just returned. What the hell did she come from? I got Thor, when Thor arrives in Wakanda. And that's what I thought when Hippolyta returns.
So
I was like, yes, she's back. I was super excited. But Raven, finding out that, again, one, it's a multiverse machine and she's been away for 200 years. What did you think of her return?
Well, the nerd in me figured out that it was a multiverse machine from the jump. Okay. But I'm happy that she explained it. And I loved watching Letty's face as Hippolyta was explaining how she was. Letty was like, okay. Like, her face, it was just so, like, because I feel like you don't get to see Letty, like, not at all, but, like, basically, like, you don't get to see her looking up to somebody. Like, you can tell that she really respects Hippolyta. I think that was a great, slight exchange in that moment of Hippolyta just putting together all these machines and all this stuff and just telling them, yes, you got to reset this and do that back. And it's a really simple equation. And they're just like, what the hell? Like, even even when she was like, I'm Hippolyta and I can name myself whatever I want. I was like, that is damn right. I am Raven Smith and I can name myself.
I think also
I was feeling empowered on my couch.
The admiration came from when I think Letty's always wanted a moment between all the men where she could be like, get your ass in the car. And when Hippolyta said, that's my baby, and get your ass in, the general tone was like, get your ass in the car. And everyone was like,
super rank.
He's like, okay.
No, she goes, I spent 200 years learning infinite knowledge. Now get your fucking ass in the car.
And everyone was like, oh, yes. That's AKA.
I would have
Yes, she did.
Yep.
Yes.
Remember when your mom was like, I will get your ass in this car right now.
And then curl her lips up, get your ass in that car. But yeah, I loved like, I was so excited that she came back. I actually read an article, somebody was like, oh, that should have been way more epic, and we're just not going to talk about where she's been. I was like, she literally said it, bro. We watched the whole episode. Like, did you not watch the episode? We watched her go back, mad and years and forward, and what are you mad about?
And also, I feel like, yes, certain things, yes, you can say it was glossed over in that, but they're dealing with a lot right now. There's like priorities. Like
it's her whole baby. Like, I will explain that shit later. Like,
we're just happy you're back. Finally, we have someone that can use their blood. Like,
literally, the only person with a solution, and now
or somebody that knows what the fuck is going on. She's the only one that has any slight idea of what's going on. Like,
I need an explanation right now.
Christina's even like, huh? So I feel like Hippolyta literally came to save the day. People were like, oh, it wasn't like, not people, specific articles. I feel like, it wasn't epic enough when she came back, and I'm like, okay, but her going Super Saiyan and literally drooling out and like keeping whole portals open wasn't a thing.
Yeah, you gotta have narrative pacing that works. Mike, you said something that I thought of too. Hippolyta was Doctor Strange in that sense. She was a Doctor Strange that was
definitely
like,
Doctor Strange.
I've seen 4 million realities.
Up at night and like studying, like levitating above her bed.
I've seen all realities, and this is the only one that can work. It was the Avengers. It was the end one. It was the end game. Only one. Which, Mike, leads to Ruby. When Christina leaves, Ruby leaves with Christina. And this is going down a path that we've been suspecting of Ruby. She tries to convince Letty to go with her. Letty's like, this bitch, she may help us, but she has ulterior motives. And Ruby's like, no, but come with me. What did you think of that whole sequence and where it's possibly leading to?
I mean, this whole deal with everyone thinking they can use magic for themselves, keep going back into that. There's this great power. We can use it for good. We can use it for our own motives and to fight back on what we think is wrong. It never works that way. In every story, I don't want to go back into it again, but in every story we've seen, including my favorites,
Lord of the Rings.
It's like the same thing. It's like you start to understand where everyone's coming from, of course, but you hate to see Ruby go down that path. And it's like, I get it. You want to bring your sister along for what you think is a better life, but it's really just a mask.
You could be a white woman.
Yeah, really. It's like, you just have not learned yet,
She's getting lost in the sauce, literally.
Oh, for sure.
I couldn't have said it better right there. Yeah.
Which I want to take it further, Mercedes. Ruby and then Christina have that conversation where pretty much Christina confirms that yes, I'm going to possibly kill Tick. He's going to die. Sorry. And which the conversation ends with Ruby killing Dell because she wants a redhead. So she's fully committed into this life now. What do you think of that whole moment?
Said that she's lost in the sauce. Like we are.
I forgot that happened. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
it did happen, didn't it?
Who else?
Yes.
Like I heard it, but like
I just can't talk too much about this because I think this is going to go into differences in the book where Mike is going to talk about Ruby's little trials and tribulations, but that's what happens with that, and I think we're starting to see the deterioration with a desire that goes a little awry. That's why she's trying to rationalize it, and that's what do they say when in AA, like addiction 101, when you're in a sense of denial, like you said, killing the redhead and just like a by any means necessary kind of thing. And as a person of color, taking any person's life, I think we feel that a little bit more maybe. maybe I'm overstepping by saying that, but the fact that she's so willing to kill this person, I don't think it mattered that she was a white woman. I think it mattered that she wanted a specific thing. So like I said, I think we're seeing the deterioration of one of our favorite characters, which kind of makes me love the show more.
And the idea that she's willing to let Tick die, she knows that Letty's pregnant with Tick's baby on top of that, but she's like willing to allow that to happen for her own needs, which I find interesting as well, because at the same time that Ruby wants to be a white woman, this white woman that's giving her this freedom wants to be a white man. So ultimately, you're still going to be subservient to them. You're still going to be underneath. You're never going to be equal to Christina. And I don't think Ruby understands that quite yet.
Ruby doesn't get that. Ruby didn't ask to be a white man. She didn't. She, as crazy as it is, like Christina said, I'm giving you the ability to do whatever the fuck you want. And still, Ruby's ideology is limited to, I'm gonna be a white woman and go manage a store. Why would you want to work?
That's
you gotta think larger. Like
that's Morpheus going to Neo if Neo was a crackhead and being like, the blue pill or the red pill, and the blue pill is gonna make you go that's like, what did you think was gonna happen? You're not gonna get the same person.
Well,
they're not gonna make the same decisions.
The first always free.
The person is always free.
I guess she dropped that potion like it was nothing. Like, here you go.
Which is why we know Christina, it's sad to say, but she is the villain, she's setting it up.
I love the moment between Montrose and Letty just before the portal, talking about the sacrifices and things that you would do for your child, right? It's almost like Montrose is like saying, I know you have a baby. You've seen the terrible things I have done. You're not going to understand the things that you might have to do to protect that child, which I thought was a great moment. And just opening the portal and Montrose being scared, knowing in hindsight where Montrose's story goes, seeing his PTSD and his fear to jump to the portal. What do you think of the whole sequence?
I mean, for one, I go back. Montrose has, I think, become my favorite character in this. He has such a wide arc. He changes so much from when we first saw him, and now him really having a real heart-to-heart with Letty about what it takes to be a parent. And it's like, I understand you're trying to protect yourself, but you ended up killing my boy by protect what you think is protecting yourself. You say you love him. What you did is actually kill him by giving those pages away. It was a hard truth, and there was no right to either one of those. Like they,
and he said, "I can't let that go."
Right? Yeah, can't let it go. You understand why she did it. You understand why he said it, and it was like, just where else can you go from there? But after that, of course, and it's like exactly what you said, David. It's PTSD. Like, imagine going back into the worst day of your life, knowing exactly full well what's going to happen, and you got to sit by and just watch it. You can't alter anything. He's probably thinking about what he could do already in that moment, but he's terrified about how it's going to happen. And now that we all have an idea of what actually really happened in Tulsa from the last HBO show, we already know what's about to happen too.
Piece them both together.
Yeah. You're afraid for him.
Which I love about that jump, because, yes, Letty and Tick know what happened, but they know through stories. So they're like, yeah, we're going to jump right through, no hesitation. Whereas he knows what he's going into. He knows firsthand, literally firsthand of what it means. And I love that, because us as the audience, we're not quite sure either. We're like, come on, jump in. The portal's going to close. That's a cool looking portal. Just go in. It's time travel.
What are you waiting for? Just do it. We have a child to save. Right.
And again, I love how it builds up to that moment of him knowing what he has to do. That's why he starts drinking the moonshine that his brother made. Because he knows what he's about to go. And then you understand his drinking as a whole. You just start seeing all these layers and layers and layers. You're like, damn, holy shit. And obviously, the team arrives in Tulsa, which I thought they did a beautiful job of visualizing Tulsa before the tragedy that happened, right? I'm happy we got to see happy Tulsa. I was listening to the podcast, and they were saying initially they wanted to kind of throw the team straight into the chaos, but they thought, no, let's see what Tulsa was like. And I thought that was good. I thought we needed to see what it was like, because it's one thing hearing it was a prosperous black city, but to see it, outside of the damage, I thought it was great to see. But Raven, when Tick realizes that Montrose has been drinking, he gets mad at him, saying that's it, this is the last mission we're going to take. But then you see the moment, I think it's a moment that turns everybody around, including the characters and everyone from Montrose, seeing young Montrose being beaten by his dad, and the whole interaction with the young version of Uncle George and his mum. What did you think of that whole moment?
It was really tough to watch. I don't like watching anybody get lashes, man. And that was lashes. That wasn't no just regular ass whooping. That was like, That was some
Right?
slave shit. I was watching it like, damn. And I was also thinking, like, honestly, that's just very true to trauma. A couple generations back, wasn't too long ago, the white man was doing that to you. Probably shouldn't be doing that to your kid, but it's probably the only way that you know how to express yourself, which is really fucked up. So I really love that once again this show deals with these types of things. It's the subtleties for me. But I think that it was a crazy moment, because I think a lot shifted for the viewers at home, and also for both Letty and Tick, in terms of how they view Montrose. Because I feel like Letty's always had some sympathy for him. Letty's always kind of like, oh, but you're dead, whereas like Tick was ready to beat him up, and I was a little scared for him, but then I think Tick seeing what happened to his dad, and the fact that people just allow it. There were people outside on the porch chilling, just watching this kid get his ass beat like that. I don't think I can stomach that.
You thought Montrose beat you hard. That wasn't a beating.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think Tick was realizing too. Tick was realizing like, oh shit, my dad did take it easy on me, to his perspective, and I love also the introduction to Tick's mom, because it's the first time we've seen her like not in a photo, right? So I love the introduction to Tick's mom, and I love how we were introduced to her character, that she was coming out to save Montrose. And it all makes so much sense, because, that's how they end up getting married. She saves him from shame in the public eye, So I did love how, like, just that one scene, you understood how Montrose could have been married to this woman, despite not maybe having attraction, but that they have a bond. Like he said, when you go through something like that with people, it's different, which is the reason why he wasn't mad at George for possibly being Tick's dad. And I think that all in that one scene, I think everyone understood, including the audience, like the events leading up to Montrose, or how Montrose could be Montrose. And it was tough. It was tough to watch.
There's two moments in the scene that stood out to me. One where Montrose said, "I deserved it." It is very telling of how it affected him psychologically. Just like, even still to this day, he still believes, watching it happen, he still believes he deserves it. Like, that's crazy how psychologically damaged he is. And it really tells you sometimes, like, I come of a family of divorce as well, and my father wasn't exactly the best kind of man, and I don't hold any grudge, because you're watching things like this, it makes me realize, like, he had his own pain. Probably everyone has their own pain. It's not to excuse it, it's not to justify it, it's just to say that some of us are probably lucky that we're not like that because of circumstance. I didn't grow up a life where someone beat me because of my sexuality. I can't say I would have turned out to be this person if that didn't happen to me. Who's to say I wouldn't? People aren't born bad. It makes you realize like certain things, people go through life, unfortunately, and they go through circumstances that we just have to realize that we're blessed to not have to go through. He got beaten like that because he put a corsage in his hair. Like, what? You actually think of what actually happened.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was funny though, because I kept trying. Like, I was watching a beating happen, and I was like, but I don't understand. And I thought that he was walking around like with flowers, like being girly, and it was a corsage. It's technically it's like a man thing. I don't know. I just felt like it didn't deserve all that. I feel like even if he did do something to deserve all that, he didn't deserve all that.
Right.
After the third one, I think that's enough. I think he gets it.
And it really added weight to, like, throughout this whole season, Montrose has had that constant memory flashback. Pick a switch, pick a switch, pick a switch.
Like, I felt like he broke skin.
It's like,
Jesus.
oof. And another moment
what a rough day. Like, people have shitty days, but that is a shitty day.
You said rough day. That's an understatement.
Right?
Wow.
And another moment I liked as well is when, you get that moment where the young version of mom is mad at Uncle George for not stepping up. And then Montrose says, no, she was wrong. No one did more for me than George. I love that he stepped up for his brother.
Uncle George was a looker. I was like, young Uncle George. Okay, I understand.
But even the fact that, he admits that, no, my brother stood up for me. He don't get it twisted. He was a good brother to me. He was the only one that, in terms of that, he was the best person to me. I believe that, especially seeing their last moments together, you believe that they were good as brothers. Even though George felt he could have done more, they loved each other. You never felt that there was animosity between the two of them.
No.
There was also one more of that scene. If you watched Tick during him watching his own dad get whooped, you saw him go from, you deserve this, to not being able to even look anymore.
Yeah,
like,
he couldn't even look up.
You know,
He was just looking at Montrose, like
Mhm.
grown Montrose, like,
Good-
you
good
could
catch.
watch
like
this.
he's probably thinking that like that was me. This is what you did to me.
Mm.
And it's like, maybe I'm seeing you happen. It's like, yeah, you definitely deserve this. But it's like, but
I
wait,
feel like
this
any
wasn't
kid wants
after
to
the
go.
fact, you know.
Yeah, I feel like any kid kind of wants to go back in time and see their parents get their ass whooped.
But then you
for a little
regret
bit,
it.
But
Right.
yeah, for a little bit. But then you're like, okay, now, whoa,
And,
that's
and
a bit much. Grandma, stop.
that's why I said this episode also reminded me of Back to the Future. You know, the one of the reasons Back to the Future happened was the idea was I want to see what my parents were as kids. And so like Tick gets to see that. It's almost like a Back to the Future moment. It's not what you expect it to be because you all had this assumption of what our parents' childhood was. But it's another thing hearing about it. It's another thing seeing it. Mercedes, I want to talk to you about Letty's time at Mama Hattie's house. Oof, that was a tough moment. You know, with Letty
Very tough.
getting thrown right into the mix of things with those guys attacking her.
I
and
didn't
running
need
to the
that
house.
long ass scene.
Oh, that whole sequence.
That
Right?
fire was too long.
Oof.
Yes, you did. You did need it. And the reason why you needed it is because I think that all of us, especially us nerds, we watch fantasy, we watch sci-fi, we have a large sense of hope. And we've all talked about if we went back in time, and it was definitely solidified when we saw Django, because of course we got to see a Black hero in that sort of time frame. And now we're watching Lovecraft Country in a sci-fi realm, and it's thrust with super realness of just like, you really can't change time as much as you want to from the bottom of your heart. Like, some things actually have to happen. And for the Black community, it's not just bad things, they are atrocities. And that's something that as a community we've learned to not even, I don't want to say get over, but just we come together, and it's something that we deal with as a collective. It's just like, you know,
We
all
joke.
of however we process the trauma, it's something that we, you know, get over on our own. But seeing this episode, to me, just like, it was heartbreaking and kind of cathartic for me, because it was just like, even though as much as I'd love to go back in time and fix the things that I want to fix, watching this episode made me realize like we can't fix anything from the past, because our past actually made who we are today. Like, every single person here, like every person of color here, we can't go back and change that, because none of us would be able to be here and have the opportunities that we have. And that's what I got from that scene. You know, and that's why they made it so long. And so, because it's like these, like, you carry that burden, like these people that died in the Tulsa Massacre, you know, the people that, you know, went through slavery, all these people carried those burdens so that we could be here today to like have a fucking podcast and talk about this shit.
You know, it's true you say that, and you're gonna give more detail in the references section. But during this sequence and the next sequence, you know, the catch of fire is being heard, the performance, and part of that story is, you know, the fire that's burning us can be used to kind of push us forward, right, to fuel us, right? That same thing that it's like, yes, people died and we can be sad about it, or this can lead to revolution, and using this fire to light up a revolution underneath us, right? It's, and that's, I took it the same way. Whereas you can't change the past, because if you change the past, it doesn't help your future, especially in a world where we've established alternate timelines, right? So you change anything, it just creates a different timeline that isn't your timeline. So you can't do anything about it. And also, I'm always love time travel stories. You know, Umbrella Academy touched on this, where, you know, people of color go back to a time that's even worse. He always wants to change things, but I feel like sometimes changing things almost does a disservice to the reality of it. Yes. Because just because you change that event doesn't change racism, right? It doesn't mean.
It also doesn't change certain people's experiences from that day. You can't erase current people's trauma from a different time. No. Even if you go back and change it in history, that's a new person witnessing a new history. But that old person that you left, that you tried to help, is still going to feel it, and it's still very much there. You can't erase it just because you went back in time, and it sucks.
But I love this, you know, even though it was a short performance, Regina Taylor as great grandmother Hattie, I thought she was great. I just thought, you know,
she was great.
She played that grandma.
It was awesome, because it wasn't so funny when she got into the room. She was like, I ain't seen no shoes before. So why she cocked the gun, she's like,
from the jump. If you watch her face from the second, like,
straight
from
away,
the very beginning, she was like, no.
That footwear.
No, Grandma Hattie wasn't having it.
Who's gonna notice
that?
Literally, when Letty was running, I was like, they should know something's off here. Look at his track star.
You know,
but yeah.
we got a sense of Letty's dream came true. She was in a burning house carrying the book. Yeah, she had this dream.
Wow.
Did you catch
Wow,
that
I
one?
didn't think about
There you
that.
go.
Everything's coming full circle.
When Montrose had run away, everyone assumed that he was going to warn Uncle George about the far future, that death was going to happen that we saw at the beginning of the series. But no, we get to find out even more information. If his life wasn't hard enough, if, the massacre wasn't hard enough, we find out that he had a close friend called Thomas, who was now, he said, I can't be friends with you anymore, calls him the F word because I'm not one of you, in his own moment of self-denial because of what his father did to him, only for him to get shot right there and then, like, holy shit. I thought that moment was just like,
That was crazy. I'm not coming back from that. Are you kidding me? I'm doing all the drugs, all the alcohol.
Can I
don't
tell
care.
you this?
Like, I understand completely. I was like, Montrose, you go have yourself a drink, sir.
His brains sprayed all over your face. Like, it wasn't like something happened far away.
Like, I'm pouring you a glass. Here
Like,
you go. Just
this is someone who you loved and you just pushed them away, and then moments later their brains are all over your face. Like, and you're a child.
And then you got your ass kicked for the
Right?
second time of the day.
Like, and then
Like,
damn. When Tick is holding Montrose back, like, no, you can't stop this, and Montrose knowing that he can't stop this, and then when Montrose said the one line that made me think, you know what, I don't care who's your daddy, Montrose is your daddy. When Montrose says, I wanted to be your father, I was just like, God, a tear
said,
came
all
out.
I ever wanted to
Won't
be
lie.
was your father. It's like,
A tear came out my eye. I won't lie.
Montrose. He cares.
That was, yeah.
Because it's like, okay, yes, my life situation made it big because of
He failed at it.
stuff, but I wanted to be your father. I wanted to be, I was like, damn, he really wants it. And everything he did, he thought he was doing the right
might be
thing.
your father, but you're my son.
And then we get one of my favorite moments in time travel, chicken or the egg storylines in time travel, where it's like Tick realizes it was him all along. He was the baseball bat superhero.
But I also love it because it plays into episode 1,
Yep.
minute 1,
Yep.
where fucking Tick and Jackie Robinson got you, kid. I was like,
The stories that his father, it's really, I love that little thing because you forgot that happened. That they said there was a mysterious
oh, I
stranger.
remember.
Oh,
I'm just saying, it's like,
Yeah.
I forgot that it was going to happen
You
now.
just assume that they're just gonna let it
Right.
be answered eventually. Like,
Or like the whole thing. I thought like,
I thought it was gonna be actual Jackie Robinson.
I realized, I remember that they got saved by somebody,
Yeah.
but I thought it was just like and some guy just saved us. Just a little thing that happened, but making it Tick just adds so much more gravitas to it because it makes it look secular. It's like, oh, okay, it was always going
Watching
to be
Tick fuck them up. Oh, watching Tick fuck up racist. I could watch that all day, on a loop.
right?
That was so satisfying.
And I love the idea that, like if they didn't travel in time, that would be changing time. Like they have to time travel to maintain the timeline because
he realized he had to interfere because he always interferes.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's just
Crazy.
chicken or egg, which happened
It really
first.
is what started first.
Literally.
Break it. And I what I love that scene as well. Even in the mob, they weren't afraid to also show white women in that mob. It wasn't just dudes. And I like that. I was like, okay, yeah, because I think so many times when people think of racist mobs, they just think of white men. I'm like, no, there are white women involved in this stuff too. Like,
They held
phone
everybody
calls.
accountable.
right?
He's making the phone calls, hosting the meetings.
And I also
if,
like.
I'm sorry. Speaking of that, just real, if you saw Bill Burr's monologue from SNL last
Yes.
So
weekend,
good.
Yes,
I was dying. And I was like
It's
really
exactly that.
surprised he went there.
No,
It's
it's
a
true.
good
I mean,
for
for
you,
those who
Bill
don't
Burr.
know, check it out.
I was worried he was racist for years. Had
But I also
no
think-
idea.
I think speaking of that, I think Lovecraft also kind of deals with that through the character of Christina, where this narrative of white women having kind of the benefits of the fight for equality, but it's like, no, you're kind of above black people and people of color. It's not the same thing. You may be below white men,
Yeah.
but you still
They're
get
like, but
benefits.
I'm a woman. You're like, that's not enough.
It's not the same thing.
Nice try, though. Yeah.
I'm a black woman. Oh.
sit here and take your talking to.
Raven,
Exactly.
they have to return home. They have the book, and they have to return home. But Hippolyta is struggling and holding the portal open. The moment when Tick,
Honestly, I didn't know if Hippolyta was going to bounce back from that. I was worried. She was like at max capacity. She was just going to burst.
when Tick jumped through and the
The
portal closes
multiverse.
for a brief moment, I was like, well, they're stuck. I thought, what, they're going to be stuck.
All I thought is they're not going to survive the night.
We've had so many moments like that where it's just like, I guess we're giving up on them. It's
It had me
over.
stressed. It instantly became like the Warriors for me, the Warriors movie, where like they gotta bop their way down to fucking Coney Island. I was like, I don't know how y'all gonna bop your way back to 1950. but you're gonna figure it out. I
she
was
said
nervous.
bop their way back.
You gotta swing some
And-
bats and do what you gotta do the whole way back to 1950.
Right?
'Cause,
And not for
Lord,
anything.
I was so scared. And
Not
then
for-
Letty's just slow walking.
Seriously, I was
like,
going to
"Ah."
say that. How
I
slow is
was
Letty walking?
So
screaming
annoying.
at Letty slow
I was like,
walking.
bitch,
And all I could think
can you run? Because she's definitely
Doesn't
just
she
like
always have
That
power?
wasn't the only
from
one
the
that pissed me off.
mouth.
No.
Because I was like, look, okay,
No.
I love me some Letty.
Power
But
walk.
she could have,
But
Like-
this time, I was
Like,
like, Letty, if you don't,
you-
you don't get your ass.
Like,
we get it. You
Girl.
Wonder Woman, boo. You invincible, but can you put
Yeah,
a pep in your
invincible,
step?
sure.
like of all the times to not power walk. Like, she's known for the Letty power walk.
Yeah.
Like,
Like one, the Letty Power, two, the Letty Power lunge. Do you
Right?
see them strides?
Right?
We've seen you run.
And-
Shut up,
And it's
Fred,
not
on it.
like she didn't know they were gonna die. And I get that she actually had to watch it, but like you gotta go.
okay, now run.
home.
You watched it.
I
Now
guess I
run.
get it's traumatic.
So
Also,
like
she stayed at the house way longer than she needed to. Homegirl was it's a mad long.
Raven.
You don't need that in your life. Yeah, you're pregnant. You don't need to witness that. She was all tongue sticking out.
Raven
eyes
would have been
bulging.
out like in the mid. Oh, okay.
I would have been like, well, all right, time to go. I'd be like, all right, friend. Well, I guess I'll
And,
be on my way.
Hippolyta goes Super Saiyan on us. The hair, she finally transforms fully into Renthia Blue, which again,
Orinthia Blue.
which kind of
Storm.
begs the question. Has Dee constantly been seeing the future in her drawings? Like
Is she prophetic?
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
exactly.
like Dee has always been some type of sensitive. I
Where's
don't
that
know
metal
if
arm?
she's like
Mhm.
empathic or something, but something's been going on with her since the jump. So
Mhm.
honestly, there's so much to explain in episode 10. Like it's gonna piss me off because like I'm hoping that when they bring these things up, that it's not just something that they like toss out there.
Mm.
Like, oh, okay, yeah, she exists in every multiverse because her mom
Probably
is
gonna get
from
one
the
of those, yeah.
multiverse. And then all right, next. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? That's gonna piss me off a lot. So this better be like a 2.5-hour episode.
If we've learned
Nah.
anything,
So
don't
many
rely on an
questions.
HBO finale.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
gonna give you
Oh.
an hour and a half, like Game of Thrones and
So
True Blood,
true.
and
Right,
just be
right.
like
Black
very
And they're
screen.
like, we want you to we want you to write us about a season
We've
2.
seen this
so-
before. It's all good.
You might be lucky with
It's
an
gonna
hour
be
and
15 minutes
15.
of blank screen in the end. We're just gonna be staring, cursing each other out. What the fuck?
I loved
Like,
I love the moment of Montrose kind of witnessing everything and kind of reciting the names of the dead, of the people who had been killed on that day. It was a very powerful moment because you don't have to be told that those people were real, that those names are real. You kind of got it, right? That
Mhm.
Ooh,
Yep.
that hurt.
these are real people.
And then you could tell he got so stuck and like, in the residual. And I felt so bad for him because it's like he shouldn't have been there. I felt so bad for him. Like I get that they needed a guide, but damn.
Y'all couldn't get anybody else.
Like y'all couldn't find anyone else. You couldn't just be like, where's Montrose getting his ass beat today? Just
But I
then
like,
think
it-
the
yeah.
catch,
we also
the
get a
catch
sense that-
22 is like that happened to everyone at that time. So who would you have asked that? Because like,
They're
I
like,
don't-
girl, there's about 5 on this block right now. You want to see
But you also
go this one?
You also get a sense that as much as he didn't want to go, Montrose wants to go because his son's going. And he's at the point where it's like, I have to, he even said, I'll die for my son. If someone has to die, it'll be me. Magic. That's the jazzy way to go. And so
he's
he
ready to do the right thing.
Yeah, he wants to go the jazzy way.
This face got more jazz.
Yes.
Leftover question. The main leftover question is the autumnal equinox. What's going to happen? I did not see the previews for next week, but on purpose. I don't want to know anything.
I don't think I'm gonna. I'm just gonna. I haven't watched any of the previews. Not really.
Yeah, no, I don't
watched it.
usually watch the previews. I don't like to know what's
I
going
don't
I already
What's
know
going on?
we already know what's gonna happen. Exactly. Thank you, Mike. We all know what's gonna happen.
I
I show
don't,
you
Chris-
what you probably already know. Yeah.
I
Just
don't
those
look at it.
scenes,
And the thing, no, I wanna not know. I don't wanna
Exactly.
know.
Raven,
like, I
you
wanna
and I
be like,
together.
wow, yeah. Just cause like it's gonna piss me off if I guess the whole thing, and
Right.
then they do it.
Because I have a week of
No.
guessing. I don't have a week of guessing. You
Yeah,
know?
like give me the money. Give me the money. If I guess the whole shit, give me the money.
Uh,
I'm pretty sure that's not how that works, but
I think so.
Raven,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's-
Mercedes, there's not as many as usual, but what were the cultural references this week?
not as many, but still super significant. The number one was the Tulsa Massacre. HBO gave us a little first look of it in Watchmen, but in Lovecraft Country episode 9, they definitely divulged a little bit more and giving us a glimpse of what actually happened. Good, bad, and ugly, and there definitely wasn't much good. The movies this week were Buster Keaton's The Goat, which was also featured in Watchmen at the Dreamland Theater. So little correlation for those two features. Poem-wise, the poem that plays over the climatic scene where Hattie burns to death and Tick beats the riders with the back is Catch a Fire. And that's performed by civil rights activist Sonia Sanchez. And it discusses the common theme throughout the series of Black people using ingenuity to transform their tools of oppression into tools of liberation. And then, as Dave mentioned before, so there's really, not that we don't really need to talk about it, but Montrose goes over the victims that did die that he knew during Tulsa. So those were our cultural references this week for Lovecraft Country.
Are those real people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, those were actual. It's a eulogy to the victims of the massacre. He names specific victims, and these are real people who perished in the actual riots. So it's another tribute, which is really nice.
Wow.
So like Watchmen showed us what happened, but this one paid homage and respect, which was
I feel like this one gave a
Like,
face to it,
the
and I
doctor-
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I feel
'Cause
like
even-
there's like,
No, go on.
No, I just feel like it's what we've discussed on previous podcasts about how like it's one thing to like address that racism exists, but it's another thing to like, go deeper. And I think to we're all at the point now where it's like for the most part you should know what happened, but perspective I think is something that I'm appreciating that's happening now. And this specifically, like every Tulsa story I've read was more from a history perspective. Like this was the date, this is what happened, this is what was damaged, but
this is more personal.
it's not, it's numbers, it's not souls, it's not people, it's not families. You're not thinking about the owners of these stores that were burned down were Black fathers, husbands, brothers. So I think that I appreciate this show because I think like even in Watchmen we saw what happened and we saw like kind of the long-term effects, but more so on a generation and not on the individual. And I think that I appreciate seeing that in this show because I think it just makes it that much deeper.
You connect to it more because you're following a specific family's journey through that trauma. And a lot of us, most people didn't even know that Tulsa happened. So being able to, go from having the information to now being able to go through a journey with a character is definitely going to have the audience feel it more. And I think that was the intended effect.
Yeah, I think even little things like, mentioning the doctor and saying he was the best surgeon around. These are
That's
people
a real
who had
doctor. I know
lives.
about that
Yeah.
surgeon.
So it wasn't just like a Black man who got killed.
Crazy
this
enough,
guy-
I studied him though. So y'all just like in school, y'all gonna bring him up.
Just
You're
skip.
just not gonna talk about what
It's like,
happened. That's
and he
cute.
died. It's like and he died. They didn't
And he died.
they
Yeah.
didn't even go into details.
Exactly.
History, the same history also killed him.
Right.
Here you go.
Mike, this series has moved further and further away from the books. Anything left or any similarities or any references to the books?
I know you say it's moving away, but actually there wasn't too much of a difference for this one. The only one was more of a nod that Ruby mentions when she says that when she imagined herself as a white woman, it was always a redhead. In this, instead of it being Dell, it was Ruby's alter ego Hillary, which were both redheads that were in the book. That was really it, though.
Yeah. Okay, so that's why she says she's redhead. I wonder if we're going to see that redhead. Clearly, we're going to see a redhead. We'll find some random redhead.
It
new
might come full
character.
circle. Yeah.
Right, next
Oh, yeah.
episode.
That might be a part of the cliffhanger for episode 10.
Right.
Now I'm trying to think if I've seen like.
Any redheads in the background?
Yeah. Now I'm trying to go through it in my head. Like, has there been any redheads?
Oh, God.
Or why Letty's
Who they
wearing
gonna
red all the
kill?
time, too.
One more episode left.
Red shirts.
As far as I know,
One more. That's
as
so
far as I know at this
sad.
point, the story would have caught up to the books, so we don't know if there's going to be a second season, because if there is, they have to kind of make up new stories. So is it like Watchmen, one and done, or is it going to be more? I don't know. We literally don't know. On that note, thank you, Mercedes.
Yeah, my phone's shutting down.
Thank you.
No problem, Dave.
Thank you, Raven.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rocket Mike.
Thank you.
My name's English Dave, and this has been a Nerdy Bunch review of Lovecraft Country episode 9. And as always, Mercedes,
Keep it nerdy, y'all.
keep it nerdy, guys. Peace.